Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Dance Teacher Pep Talk. I am your host, Amanda, and I am so glad you are here. This is a space for dance teachers and anyone interested in teaching dance who is looking for motivation and fresh ideas. As teachers, we spend our days motivating and giving pep talks to our students, and now this podcast is a pep talk just for you. We hope that it helps to ignite new ideas and even work through some deep dance related thoughts before you head into the studio. Thank you for your support, and now let's get into today's episode. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Dance Teacher Pep Talk. If you are in the US, I hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving. We are still in the month of November, but December is fast approaching, and so is holiday season, though I feel like we're probably already in holiday season considering we just had Thanksgiving. So, anyways, I wanted to do today's episode on a little bit of a deeper topic because I think that this is necessary not only for our dance teaching lives, but also just our personal human lives, especially during this time of year. So, today's topic is when difficult situations arise. And I know that's pretty broad, but the fact is that they will, and they will come up in our career. No matter how beautiful, no matter how happy our job makes us, difficult situations do arise in many different instances. And so, today we're going to really talk about that because I feel it's important not only for us, but also for our students as well, and for the many people that we surround ourselves with doing this job that we all love. So, if you are looking for a quick fix, like maybe you came to this episode and you are maybe personally going through a difficult situation yourself right now, I do recommend going back to episode 28. It was a meditation that I put together that kind of actually goes along with this topic about how to help you through really extreme emotion to reground, recenter, and help you to get to a place where you can begin to process. So that was episode 28, a meditation to warm you. And in the beginning of this episode, I'm going to go right into specific strategies that I use when difficult emotion hits. So you won't have to listen that much longer to find those. But another reason why I wanted to bring this topic up this time of year, as I mentioned, is because this time of year can be very busy. It's a beautiful season. There's so much magic to it. We're going to get into that more in the month of December, but it's so interesting to me. I mean, this is from personal experience. I don't know if you can relate, but I almost feel like with the busyness of the season, people can be more on edge, maybe quicker to snap. Stress is a little bit higher. There's a lot going on because there's more on our plates. And though what is on our plates is, beautiful, we're preparing for different holiday seasons. We have different events that are going on, celebrations of the season. It's just more. It's more to the schedule. It's more that we have to account for. And sometimes it pushes you out of your schedule and it pushes you out of your day to day. And so that can create a little bit more pressure, more stress on your life. Even if it comes down to like finances, maybe if you're feeling financial stress this time of year, whether it's gift giving or events that you're going to and things like that. This can be just as beautiful of a season as it is, as I mentioned, it can have a little bit higher stress. I feel like shopping, in the holidays, it's like you see more road rage than you typically do and things like that during the year because parking lots are more full and, people are just trying to get everywhere quicker and get things done faster because they have a million things on their list. So, this episode, I feel like, is also pertaining to that. And I just thought it would be good to talk about this because I feel like maybe we can relate a little bit to this. Now, when it comes to our dance teaching lives, difficult situations can arise in so many different ways. And through the years, I've been through experiences where there may be situations in the classroom, there may be situations in our own lives, our email inboxes, misunderstandings. It can happen with our students, our colleagues, parents and families, people in our own personal life. And these are just ways that I have helped myself work through them through the years. And I know that looking back, there are so many situations I was in that I did not handle well. But I'm very glad that I had that experience because now looking back, that was a very teachable moment for me in my life. And I was able to now approach situations that maybe came up similarly in a different way. And so, one thing that I like to remind myself of a lot of the time when a difficult situation arises with another person is this quote, and I have no idea who said it. I'm so sorry, but it's this notion that people put things on you that are a reflection of themselves. So if somebody is putting this energy on you, it's not always has it something to do with you. It has more to do with the other person because it's their perception of you in that moment. And at the same time, your perception of how you're taking it is the reflection of you. And with that, there is so many teachable moments. And so this is very strange, but I almost find now when things come up like this, I almost find that I'm like I take myself out of my body. And it's almost like I'm looking at the situation from a different perspective. And in this sense, whatever is being said to me or whatever happened or whatever is directed, I start to think about instantly, what is this making me feel? And then I also think about, okay, if this person is saying this to me, what is it that they may be going through? So I flip it right away and I try to put myself in the perspective of the other person because clearly the view that they have is bringing up this particular situation. And so I try to put myself in their shoes. And then with the feeling that I felt, I try to ask myself, why is this upsetting to me? Why is this triggering me? What is this rooted in? Why am I getting such an emotional response over this? And so, by doing those things, stepping outside of the situation, observing it for what it is, putting myself into the perspective of the other person, and then also trying to see why is it triggering to me, has really helped me to break down and understand situations a lot better. Now, in the heat of the moment, I almost rarely can do this. I don't really think in the heat of the moment I can do this. So for me, it's always been really important for me to take time to process because in that moment, it's like, well, if you like hear the phrase like seeing red or, just you're just so hyped up in whatever emotion it is, it's like you can't really process through at that time. You have to kind of take a little bit of time and then step out of it and look at it. And so for me, that has always been hugely helpful. And I'm not saying that I'm in difficult situations all the time or anything like that, but just in the experience that I have. And almost all of the time, like almost like 98% of the time, the situation that arises comes up because of miscommunication or misinterpretation of intention. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit later in today's episode. But a lot of the time, it's a misunderstanding. Something is coming up that there was not a connection on both wavelengths. Someone thought it was one way, somebody thought it was another way, and then it creates this issue. And so, like I said, I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. But these moments that I've been through have taught me a lot and also have taught me a lot about human interaction. And I am now way more aware of the way I put myself forward, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's in a meeting, whether it's just even at the grocery store. I do realize that not everybody is going to process this way. But if we can sort of all start to get there, I feel like maybe it would create a more compassionate space. So, difficult situations, when they arise, first of all, it brings up really strong emotion. And so, like I said before, it's really hard in that moment to process what is going on. So, these are some strategies for different emotions that I have found have worked well for me. So, for example, an angry situation. Something has happened and has really angered you. Some things that I use during anger that really help me to decompress is taking a walk, completely disconnecting from my phone and anything else that could continue to stress me out, whether it be, news that I'm seeing or things like that, or things on social media even that are triggering to me. I just take a break from the phone. I take a walk, exercise, deep breathing, something that is going to help me to get my heart rate back at a pace that feels safe and okay for myself. So with anger, that is something that I do. Frustration. If frustration arises and in a project that I'm doing or something like that, the first thing I do is I usually I try to push through, and that is the worst thing. So, what I've learned from that is to take a pause or a break and to do something completely unrelated. Because it's kind of like if you were looking like at a thousand-piece puzzle and you're really trying to figure it out and you kind of see it but you don't really, and you're looking at it and you're looking at it, nothing is going to fix that moment because you're just you're getting frustrated, you're getting flustered by not being able to fix the puzzle at that moment. So instead of just staring at it and continuing to get yourself worked up about it, walk away, do something completely unrelated. And then sometimes you head back to that task and you see exactly how it is that it's supposed to fit back together. And that could, be true for any type of project or thing that you're working on. Another emotion that comes up: stress, fear, and worry. And the reason why I bottle these together is because I feel like they're kind of related. Stress comes up at the times of, when we're worrying about things. And so does fear. It has to do with the uncertainty of a situation. And maybe you even start to play scenarios in your head of how things could work out. And that can even induce more stress, more fear, more worry. And so for me, when I'm feeling those emotions, what's really helpful for me is to talk with someone that I trust, really talk it through, get another's perspective on it if you're feeling up to that. And maybe if you aren't willing on having another's perspective just yet, just saying, I really would love to be able to just talk and vent this out, but I'm not really looking for advice yet. But just to take the time to recognize what is going on and to try to find the root and stem of what it is. And sometimes it takes another person hearing your views to kind of help you to maybe in a way come back down to earth, getting out of that headspace of fear and worry, and to just, come back into the body and to just realize, what is happening in that present moment. And for me, mindfulness and mindfulness practices has also helped me a ton when it comes to those particular emotions. All right, next up, sadness. Sadness as an emotion that comes up in a difficult situation. For me, I think we just need to feel it. We need to be able to move through it. We need to cry it out. We really need to be able to allow our emotions to run through us. And I've heard like many different studies and views of crying over the years. And, one of them, I just pulled a few up right in here, but researchers from Harvard Health mentioned that crying actually releases oxytocin, which is an endorphin, and that can actually help you easing both physical and emotional pain. Some people view crying as a means of releasing toxins from the body. And with that, so whatever emotions that maybe you're harboring within your body that may feel toxic or negative in that way can be released through your tears. And so there is science behind crying and the act that it does for our body. And I feel like we live in a society where, well, again, this is from personal experience, but I feel like we live in a society where we really try to shut it up. Like, don't cry, pull it together, you got to hold and suppress that emotion. But our bodies were built with this biological ability of crying that is literally supposed to help us not only emotionally, but physically to cope with stressors. And, I think it's important for us to not be afraid of that and to be able to feel it, and that it makes us more human by doing that and trying not to necessarily suppress it. And I take that same notion, with my daughter because it's hard to hear her crying. Like it's really hard. I feel it's terrible when she's crying and I want to help her. I want to make it better right away. But I know that there is a part of this that she needs to also work through with me there as her support. And, so I try to do the same for myself now. And I was not like that before. I always tried to hold it together. And now I'm realizing it's important for us, especially when we're feeling sadness. Other things that we can do too when we're feeling sad is change your environment. If you're at home, something's upsetting you and it's just not settling with you right. Maybe see if you can, go outside for a bit, change the environment, see if that helps at all. Do something that also brings warmth or comfort to the situation. Maybe it's a nice warm cup of tea that you love, or it's a song that you love, maybe uplifting music. Things like that can really help with sadness. Now, another one, which isn't necessarily an emotion, like maybe it is, but it's more of like a physical emotion, is pain. And as dance teachers, I do feel pain comes up at times in our career. I know that it certainly has come up for me. And when you're in pain, it is so difficult to push through and to be strong and to get through because your body is literally screaming back at you. And so, the best advice I can give for pain is to rest and to find other ways to accomplish what it is that you are wanting to do. So, for me, on the days where I'm in pain and I'm having a difficulty demonstrating or anything like that, I have found that my teaching has improved because I've actually needed to learn how to speak and deliver the material in a way that will get to the students without necessarily providing the visual. And I know that's hard because there's all different types of learners as well, but I found that it has worked for me in the past, and also that there are students within the class that may actually get the auditory learning better. And so by me speaking it, the auditory learners are picking it up, and then they're the ones that are then able to demonstrate and kind of get that message across for the visual learners. And so those are the emotions that I kind of mentioned. I think those are like the most common ones that come up when a difficult situation arises. But the reason why I want to bring this up too is because if your students are feeling these items too, I think it's important for us to have that understanding because, we are all humans. And I think sometimes we expect because a dancer is signing up for dance and they love to dance, that when they come into class, they always have to be a certain way, or they always have to bring a certain energy, or there's no time for the tears, leave them at the door, or there's no time for anger in the classroom, forget about it and wait till this hour is over and then get to it. But that's a really difficult thing to put on any person, not alone a younger person. And so I think it's really helpful for us to have that compassion and understanding that we feel these things and also our students can feel these things. And so if a dancer comes in, let's talk through these emotions too here, but if a dancer comes in with anger, and you sense that anger or that frustration, maybe you start off by, pulling them aside and say like, hey, what's going on? I feel like something's wrong today. If you want to talk about it, I'm here and open to listen. And, maybe they will allow, maybe they will open up and they'll allow you in. But at the same time, maybe you can start to give them strategy. Like, okay, in today's dance class, I want you to focus on really breathing through everything that you do. Don't focus on much else than that. Focus on your breath. Notice how your movement changes when you inhale and how it changes when you exhale. And by giving them a focus, it can help them to also work through that, just as a means of how I mentioned those other emotions for ourselves, how we can work through. If a dancer is coming in feeling stress or fear or worry, that's another indication too that, pull them aside. Hey, is everything okay? Maybe a test went really badly today. Maybe they're really upset over it at school or something like that. And or maybe they're worrying about a test that is tomorrow and that's all they can think about is studying. Maybe just kind of have them, explain that in this moment we're going to move our body and that's going to prepare your brains to be able to absorb the information even further when it does come time to study. And, just the little things like that. For sadness, if I know that a student has gone through a traumatic time, if there's been a death in the family, if there has been anything at school or something that has happened that I'm aware of, I am really aware of what type of music I play during that class. So even if I have a playlist set up and ready to go, and even if it's contemporary, okay, so say if it's a contemporary class, I am really aware not to play songs with sadder tones. I try very hard to keep the class as uplifting as I can because they are already sad. And I would like to try to uplift them as much as I can for the hour that they're in my class. And if it comes to pain, pain can also bring frustration because when dancers have injuries, I know that there is so much frustration around that because they don't like to sit and rest. They don't want to sit and watch. So, helping to give them tasks if they are sitting can be helpful. And also just to give them encouragement. Maybe if they're in physical therapy, have them have a special space in the room for them to be able to do their physical therapy exercises or things like that so that they feel like they're still a part of the process, even if they are resting. And that again is if they have been given physical therapy exercises and things like that. But compassion goes a long way. And if you're creating a trusting environment, that's only going to create more people to want to come to your space because people will feel safe. People will feel as a part of a community in that space. And another reminder with all of this too is that, unless you are trained as a professional, we can't always necessarily give advice in the realm of counseling, but we can give life advice from our own experience and we can give compassion. So even if we don't know the professional guidance in a situation, comfort, compassion, and empathy can go a long way. Now, as I mentioned in the beginning of the episode, if the situation has to do with you and another person or you and another situation, so much of the time, difficult situations arise because of miscommunication or misinterpretation of intention on both fronts, yourself and the other person. So I think it's very important for us as people with voices, as people who are teaching, as people who are guiding and leading. I think it's incredibly important that we are aware of the way that we speak to people. I've been through many different phases in my life about communication, the way I speak to people. Definitely, like I said, teachable moments for me that have shifted and changed the way that I speak and deliver information. But, I look back and even with the best intentions, I've been accused of at times brushing people off or talking down or, things like that. And this was never my intention. But it made me incredibly aware when these situations came up that maybe I was not fully hearing or fully accepting what it was that was being brought to me. And then my response to that was taken in a different way. And, people have completely laid into me before. And I cannot think of an instance, though, where I have ever, pushed back into somebody, especially in this setting, like in my professional setting. I think the reason why is because I really do try to take the time to process before I go. I do not, I'm never on the attack. And it's really interesting because people would always say to me, like, oh, wait until you're a mom and you learn like what mama bear mode is and stuff like that. And like, I don't know. I mean, knock on wood, I have not been in an experience like that before. And I obviously want to be able to protect my daughter at all cost and all of that. I'm sure I'll find lessons ahead in my parenting. But the thing is I don't ever feel the need to go at someone, even if they go at me in the sense of, what is it worth? And why are we doing this? I always ask myself that, like, what is the purpose of this moment, of this heated moment? And like I said, taking myself outside of my body almost and becoming an observer to it has really helped me through that. In the past, also, I want to speak on this, especially for younger teachers who were maybe like newer or starting out in the dance teaching world. But starting off, I would sometimes get advice that, I need to turn off parts of myself so as to not allow people in. And, maybe it seems a little cold. Maybe it feels like you need to put up a shield or something like that. But for me, that was really difficult because when I did try that, okay, shut parts of yourself off, I felt that I became cold, unapproachable. It was not me. It really wasn't. And so even though the intention was, for me to find ways to, move through this career and like different things that approached me or different things that happened, it wasn't the way that I processed. And so for younger teachers, what I want to say to you is, really allow yourself to find your voice and be true to your heart. And just because someone is telling you you need to be one way or teach one way or interact with parents one way or interact with students one way, it doesn't mean you need to be that way to be successful. As long as what you're doing is being respectful and professional. So if it comes down to any type of guideline, I think those are the most important too, professional and respectful. And with those, if you are, riding on those terms in the way that you deliver your communication and your interactions, I don't think you can go wrong. And if you do, say there's an instance where it comes up, if you know that you stood within your worth of being a professional, being respectful, with warmth and compassion for others, it's one of those things where you could look back and say that, you did all you could. You were all you could. There's no regret in that because you were yourself in that moment and you wouldn't have changed and done anything differently. But of course, we're going to have those moments where we look back and regret. We're humans, it's going to happen. But those are the moments that are going to teach you. And those are the moments that are going to guide you more into, different means of communication or different ways of approaching difficult situations when they arise. If you're speaking from your heart and you're acting from your truest self in any place of life, your personal life, your career life, you really can't go wrong, because if at the end of the day you feel good about how you handle the situation, then that is great. That is what it should be. And that is where we are being as authentic as we can be to who we are. I do also think too that when we talk about our energy and the way we direct to our students, I want to leave you with this thought too is, when you direct your energy and this to your students, would you direct that energy the same way to other adults? Not saying that they are adults, but like if they were, we bring them the same level of respect. Would you feel comfortable speaking the way that you do to a student in that instance as you would to another person? Because we are all humans and everyone is living their own individual life, their own individual experience. If someone is coming to your class and is having an off day, it is not an absolute necessity that they switch to a mode for the benefit of your class. If it happens time and time again, we can address it, or we can go back to those strategies I mentioned in the beginning of the episode. But, can we go through things with them? If it is affecting the overall vibe of your class, what can we do in that instance? Because I do feel that there is a line where if it is affecting others in the class, we do need to address it. Yelling at a dancer or speaking to a dancer, saying that they need to snap out of it, pull it together, or anything like that, I don't think is the safest way to get results to change the energy within your room. There are so many different ways. Back in the day, somebody maybe even would get kicked out of class. I mean, hey, that may still happen now, but I think we need to really look at like what is truly the behavior and the energy that is going on there, and does it completely warrant taking that person out of the class? And if they are taken out of the class, what comes next? Do you speak with them, or do you let them go out in the hallway? Like where is the learning that's happening there, or the reasoning? And so for me, I think it's just important to approach every situation with compassion and understanding, because we don't know what is going on in every person's lives. Even if they tell you individual, we're all individual here, we have individual lives and individual experiences, and I think it's so important to be able to approach each situation on that particular notion. The reality is, we're all going to lose our cool at times. And when we do, we are aware that we're humans. Mistakes happen, things like that. I never feel good about it after the fact, but it's important for me to take accountability for what it is that happened, and also through the processing point. There's a quote that Maya Angelou has that I think completely is like the statement of my teaching philosophy. And it's basically saying that people are not going to remember what you did, people are not going to remember what you said, but people are going to remember how you made them feel. And if we go into every class with that notion, or every interaction or communication with that notion, I think it's important, because it's how you are presenting yourself and, in a way, your brand. If you look at yourself as a brand, you are your own dance teacher, you are your own independent contractor or whatnot. I think it's important for you to have that awareness for when you're in interactions with other people. And so, other things that I do in difficult situations, I've mentioned them on previous podcast episodes, but I usually take 24 hours before processing through anything really serious. I love journaling, lists, or free writing, because I feel like it helps me to get out my thoughts and also helps me to see the picture a little bit better. I can write down different situations, how I'm feeling about them, thoughts that I've had, perceptions that I've had, and it really just helps kind of pull the picture together for me. Meditation is also another hugely helpful tool, and because it helps me to also recenter and reground to be able to process. And also, really importantly, is to recognize what the feeling is telling you in a situation. Because a lot of the time, the reason that we have our reactions is actually due to other rooted issues. And so, for me, finding that has also helped me because I realize that it isn't that I'm just feeling this, it's also that I'm feeling this. And that is much, much deeper. And that is work that I need to do myself that is so unrelated to the other person or thing that is involved in this situation. So, the big takeaways from this episode is that there are so many heavy emotions that we can feel, and there are so many ways that we can get through the processing of those emotions. And these were just tips that I personally have found have worked for me through the years. And the other big reminder or takeaway from this episode is that so many situations arise due to miscommunication and misinterpretation of intention. So, being aware of how we speak with others and also taking a step outside of these situations and being able to observe what is going on, I think is hugely helpful. And also taking the time to process. So I hope today's episode was really helpful for you, giving people the benefit of the doubt and also to look at situations in a completely different light, especially when it is a difficult situation that arises for you. I hope that you have a great rest of your week ahead. And I'm so excited for the episodes coming up really soon in the month of December to prepare us for our holiday season, the exciting month of December ahead. And don't forget to also follow us on Instagram at Dance Teacher Pep Talk because I will be sharing all of my favorite winter and holiday song resources and different exercises and activities that I do to make this month so fun. So I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode, and we'll talk soon.